Would you drink poison just to prove a point? Prince Kalian just did. Face to face with his evil stepmother, he downed the toxic tea to trap her in her own lies. Now he's collapsing at her feet while the queen fakes her shock. But the queen doesn't know this was a setup. The king has drawn his sword and a forbidden magic is about to be unleashed. Will Kalian survive his own gamble? Our story begins with the harrowing thought that if hell truly exists, it is now right in front of your eyes. A wounded man desperately calls out to the young man before him, addressing him as Majesty Bern. The man is in a state of absolute shock, still incredulous about the devastating situation. He calls out for the young man, whose name is Cyries, as Cyries weakly affirms that this is all he can do. Furious and refusing to give up, Bern orders him to stay strong. He commands Cyries to take up his sword and fight again at all costs. Tragically, it is already too late. His great and loyal friend has just lost his life on the battlefield. Bern deeply mourns the fall of his companion, utterly rejecting the grim reality of their defeat. Slowly picking up his fallen friend's sword, he screams desperately in rage. A massive, overwhelming aura emerges from his body. All of this takes place in Secritia, a homeland created by dragons and humans. Their enemy, a country called Cyries, had aggressively demanded Secritia's ultimate treasure, the axis of time. As Bern mercilessly eliminates his foes, he reflects that his people were entirely right to refuse Cyries' demands. While lost in thought, an enemy mage casts a spell directly at his back. Turning to look at the caster, Bern realizes it is too late to dodge. He loses his hand in the devastating attack. This brutal encounter marks the beginning of a war that will spell the absolute end of his country, led by the great king of Secritia, Bern Secritia. Still enraged, the king holds his sword firmly with his remaining hand. Suddenly, another enemy mage begins chanting, "Glory to Cyries!" as they cast an immense spell. The magic aimed at him is overwhelming, and Bern can already smell the approach of death. However, his defining trait is to never give up. Shouting that he is the Sword of Secritia, he slashes directly through the oncoming magic. At that moment, several elite enemy troops approach. These are the Balkan troops, the strongest mage division known to the continent. The mastermind orchestrating this destruction is the Mad King of Cyries, named Plants. Furious, Bern reflects on how these invaders have turned his beautiful country into a literal hell. One of the mages steps forward, introducing himself as Arson, the commander of the Balkan troops. Face to face with the enemy, Arson demands the king's name. As Bern prepares to launch a final desperate assault, he replies that he has forgotten everything, exclaiming that he is now just a sword serving his kingdom. Arson mockingly laughs, casting a powerful ice spell, declaring that he will personally remember the king of Secritia. Arson delivers a final blow. Bern falls to the ground as his vision blurs. In his final moments, his entire life flashes before his eyes, culminating in the destruction of his beloved homeland as all light vanishes. When sunlight finally reaches his eyes, someone is urgently telling him to wake up, addressing him as Prince. Two vassals standing before him ask if he had a pleasant dream, urging him to hurry because Prince Plants has already left for breakfast. The young man waking up is deeply confused. He wonders why anyone is uttering the name of Plants, a man he thoroughly despises. His last vivid memory is of his arm being severed on the battlefield. When he mentions his missing limb, the perplexed vassals ask if he simply had a severe nightmare, pointing out that his arms are perfectly intact. Terrified and sweating profusely, he looks down at his hands. He wonders how his arm could possibly have regenerated, as he has never witnessed such miraculous healing. Suddenly, a flood of foreign memories invades his mind. When he demands to know his own identity, the vassal replies that he is Kalian Rain Cyries. He is completely stunned. He is reincarnated on the enemy's side, trapped inside the body of the weak third prince of Cyries. With trembling hands, he tries to piece together what happened to his original body. He quickly asks the vassals for the current date. They reply that it is April 28th in the year 522. This realization terrifies him. He has woken up an entire decade before the outbreak of the final war. He recalls that the war originally started when a strange object capable of turning back time, the axis of time, suddenly appeared in the Secritia palace. News of the artifact spread rapidly, prompting the ruler of Cyries to covet it. Secritia rightfully refused to hand over such a dangerous object to an enemy nation, triggering the catastrophic invasion. Bern remembers a desperate ally, Chase Hyam, witnessing his original death on the battlefield and crying out for a way to turn back time. Looking out of the window, Kalian realizes that Chase Hyam must have successfully used the axis of time to alter the past. This is his ultimate chance to prevent the fall of Secritia. The vassal interrupts his profound thoughts, reminding him that breakfast with the royal family cannot be delayed. Resolving to make the absolute most of this unprecedented opportunity, the king of Secritia decides he will successfully live his new life as a Prince of Cyries. The doors to the dining hall open, announcing the arrival of Kalian, the third prince. Seated at the table calmly drinking coffee is Cyries, the first prince. The three princes of Cyries are all half-brothers, belonging to the lineage of the sacred state of Tencel. By order of the king, breakfast is prepared for them every morning. Though his mind is entirely that of Bern, he politely apologizes for the delay. Randell completely ignores him, treating him as if he does not exist. As Kalian sits down, the final brother arrives. Prince Plants, the second prince, enters the room without even being announced. Kalian is utterly shocked by Plants's appearance. The prince is completely disheveled, entirely lacking formal royal attire. Kalian wonders how a member of royalty could walk around in such a disgraceful state, questioning if this pathetic man is truly the terrifying Mad King from his past memories. Kalian observes the political dynamics of the table. He notes that the first prince, Randell, carefully avoids provoking Plants. This is because the current Queen of Cyries is Plants's biological mother, and no one within the palace dares challenge her absolute authority. Suddenly, Plants notices Kalian staring. He aggressively insults him, calling him reckless and claiming he doesn't possess a single drop of decency because he takes after his low-born mother. Kalian grinds his teeth in a surge of rage, slamming his cup onto the table. He reminds himself that he must endure this humiliation to protect his future plans. However, the vivid images of the war fuel his growing hatred, and his intense cold gaze fixes onto the Mad King. Sensing the defiance, Plants glares back with immense fury. He violently throws his own cup to the ground, shattering it, and stands up to demand how a filthy red-eyed brat dares look at him that way. Randell quietly taps his cup against his plate, subtly drawing their attention and restoring order. Disgusted, Plants scratches his head in anger, knocks over his chair, and storms out of the dining room, declaring that he has completely lost his appetite. Kalian looks to the first prince for a reaction, but Randell merely tells him to behave. Randell warns him that their majesty's birthday is rapidly approaching and asks if Kalian intends to cause a public scene so close to such a special event. Left shaking from the encounter, Kalian is tended to by his loyal servant, who quickly begins cleaning the shattered porcelain away from the prince's feet. The servant comments that not a single day passes without some form of chaotic incident. Kalian is deeply grateful to realize that despite the hostility of the palace, he has at least one genuinely loyal attendant who cares for him. When Kalian stands up and explicitly thanks him, the servant is visibly startled. Normally, the timid prince would have simply cried in silence, but now he is standing tall with a confident smile. Kalian reflects on his new body's heritage. The first Queen of Cyries, Dragon Sasanian, possessed hair as black as the night sky and eyes like sacred flames. Kalian is the only prince to have inherited these distinct traits, yet his magical powers have always been considered lamentable. Because Plants explicitly despised his striking red eyes, the original Kalian always tried to hide them under long bangs, eventually breaking every mirror in his quarters out of self-hatred. Looking into a mirror, the reborn Kalian calls his past self an idiot for hiding from someone like Plants. As they walk back to his quarters, Kalian asks his servant his age. The servant replies that he will turn 15 in 4 months. This piece of information startles Kalian. He vividly remembers historical records stating that Prince Kalian was mysteriously murdered shortly before his coming-of-age ceremony. The public story claimed that Kalian attempted to poison Queen Cyries, failed, and hung himself out of fear of execution. a story no one truly believed. Realizing that an assassin will likely come for him within the next 2 months, Kalian decides he must immediately alter his destiny. He demands a pair of scissors from his confused servant. Grabbing his long hair, he confidently cuts away his bangs, declaring that if there is a predestined future, he will personally twist it. He tells his alarmed servants to calm down, stating he will no longer live like a fool just because Plants dislikes his features. The next morning, Kalian enters the breakfast hall with his newly cropped hair, completely exposing his vibrant red eyes. Plants is sitting casually at the table and is visibly taken aback, asking if the boy has completely lost his mind. When Plants mockingly calls him Red Eyes, Kalian calmly sips his water, looks directly at him with a slight smile, and firmly corrects him. Kalian. Infuriated by the sudden defiance, Plant snatches a knife and violently throws it across the room. The lethal projectile flies directly toward Kalian's servant. While everyone freezes in shock, Kalian moves with incredible instincts, catching the sharp blade mid-flight with his bare hand. Drops of blood fall to the floor from a small cut on his palm. Kalian maintains a terrifyingly tranquil expression, staring directly into Plants' eyes. Plants covers his shock with a mocking tone, claiming his hand simply slipped. Kalian smiles, stands up, and calmly places the knife right next to Plants before exiting the room to treat his wound. Back in his quarters, the panicked servant begs to call a royal healer. Kalian refuses, explaining it is just a minor scratch. He sternly questions his servant, asking why he didn't attempt to dodge an attack he clearly saw coming. The servant tearfully replies that if he had dodged, Plants would have used it as a convenient excuse to brutally harm the prince instead. Retreating to the bathroom to wash his face, Kalian reflects on the brief exchange. He realizes that during Plant's sudden attack, his body had subconsciously tried to utilize internal aura, but the action triggered a sharp, agonizing pain in his heart. Intrigued, he focuses his mind to release his energy once more. Upon inspecting his internal pathways, he makes a shocking discovery. There are 3 distinct mana circles swirling near his heart. He realizes with astonishment that the famously weak Prince Kalian was secretly a mage. 3 days pass, and Kalian's minor hand injury shows absolutely no signs of healing. The servant is deeply worried, but Kalian remains stubborn. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a man dressed in vibrant red clothing. Said the royal tailor. The tailor brings up the name of Freya, prompting the servant to quickly cut him off. Kalian understands their hesitation. The original prince had suffered immensely for resembling his mother, Freya, a peasant concubine who possessed no political power. Telling the tailor to simply proceed with his work, Kalian stands for his measurements. The tailor notes that the prince is dangerously thin and needs to eat more. As he is being measured, Kalian contemplates the lore of the land. The royal family of Cyries consists of direct descendants of dragons, specifically 2 of the 8 legendary heroes who sealed an evil god long ago, the hero Hakura and the heroine Sasanian. Sasanian bestowed upon the royal lineage a powerful gift of healing and magical aptitude known as the Blessing of Sasanian. By all accounts, Kalian's minor cuts should have healed instantly. He realizes that every single time he attempts to circulate mana, his heart flares with excruciating pain. If this condition continues, he will be left completely defenseless when the inevitable assassins arrive. He calculates that his best chance of survival lies with the upcoming royal birthday banquet. The legendary Grand Mage, Elon Manil, is expected to attend. Elon is an absolute idol among magicians, one of the few who has successfully mastered the 7th circle, later elevating himself to the prestigious 8th circle. Kalian reasons that only a mage of Elon's immense caliber will possess the profound knowledge required to diagnose his broken mana paths. Furthermore, because of the overwhelming political influence of Queen Celise's maiden family, the powerful Bry's family, the Kingdom of Cyries treats traditional mages poorly. Kalian forms a strategic plan. If he can successfully bring Elon Manil to his side, he can utilize the Grand Mage's influence to halt the devastating war that Plant's family will eventually initiate. The next morning, Kalian begins rigorous physical training by running laps around the palace lake to build up his lacking stamina. He quickly finds himself completely out of breath and drenched in sweat. His physical trainer, the capable daughter of the second commander of the outer defense, is deeply alarmed, noting that his stamina seems to be actively declining with each passing day. She begs to call a royal healer, but Kalian firmly refuses. He knows that the moment a healer examines his body, his hidden mana circles will be instantly exposed to the public, putting his life in immediate danger. Their conversation is interrupted by loud, commanding shouts echoing from the adjacent training field. Kalian and his trainer watch as the elite Peel Knights conduct their daily drills. These knights belong directly to the Bry's family, serving as a powerful military force meant to keep the king's sovereign power in check. Seeing them reminds Kalian of his past life as a warrior. Suddenly, Commander Pavel approaches them with blatant arrogance. He rudely demands that they leave, claiming the third prince's presence is actively distracting his men. The surrounding knights glare at Kalian with open hostility. When the female trainer furiously demands that Pavel show proper respect to the royal prince, Pavel flashes a mocking smile, calling Kalian a bastard rat who is secretly spying on them. Instead of shrinking back in fear, as the old Kalian would have done, the reborn prince gives a wicked, chilling smile. Pavel is momentarily taken aback by the sudden shift in the boy's presence. He vividly recalls a past interaction where he had shoved the timid prince against a wall, forcing an apology out of him. Now, Kalian stands before him, emanating an incredibly heavy, commanding pressure. Kalian calmly asks the commander a direct question. "What is your sworn duty?" Sweating nervously under the intense gaze, Pavel tries to brush the question off, stating that he is in the middle of training his men. Kalian steps forward, picking up a simple tree branch from the ground. He breaks it firmly in his hands and boldly declares that Pavel is an absolute failure at his duties. He states that if Pavel's duty is to strengthen the royal forces, his current training methods are an absolute mess. Before Pavel can comprehend the insult, Kalian leaps into the air with incredible speed, launching a swift strike with the wooden branch directly at the commander's blind spot. Terrified, Pavel instinctively draws his steel sword at the last second to block the lethal blow. Kalian smiles, maintaining intense pressure against the commander's blade. With a sudden, skillful twist of his wrists, Kalian releases the branch, completely shattering Pavel's leverage and sending the heavy steel sword flying far out of the commander's hands. Turning his back to the stunned crowd, Kalian remarks with deep disdain that he is profoundly disappointed that a commander cannot even predict the movements of someone who has never formally wielded a sword. He looks Pavel dead in the eye and asks if wounding a royal prince and shouting derogatory names constitutes absolute treason. Terrified of the severe political implications, Pavel drops to his knees, sweating profusely as he begs the third prince for forgiveness, claiming he was not thinking clearly. The surrounding knights watch in absolute horror as their proud commander undergoes such deep humiliation. On his way back from the training field, Kalian spots a beautiful, incredibly wild black horse, resisting the commands of the royal knights. Recognizing the beast as Plance's personal horse, Raven, Kalian approaches it. Using his innate aura, he instantly tames the unruly animal. He happily leads the horse back to his quarters by its reins, shocking his servant, Yen, who fears the vicious retribution of the second prince. Kalian dismisses the concern with a smile, but is suddenly struck by another sharp, agonizing pain in his chest, forcing him to realize he has pushed his fragile body far past its absolute limits. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure observes them from the shadows before reporting directly to an unknown noble resting in a garden gazebo. Holding a flower, the noble remarks that even lowly worms will squirm when stepped on. He violently crushes the blossom in his fist, sneering that no matter how hard someone like Kalian tries to struggle, they can never truly alter their pathetic origins. He decides to let the prince play his games for now, noting that it wouldn't be any fun to simply crush him immediately. That evening, the three princes gather for a tense formal dinner. Kalian notices that Plance looks uncharacteristically subdued and anxious. Suddenly, the heavy dining doors swing open to reveal Queen Cyries Breeze, wearing a stunning green gown. She is accompanied by her relative, Viscount Bryce. They are overheard discussing how to properly compensate Pavel for his recent humiliation, showcasing their absolute control over the palace knights. The queen addresses Kalian, noting that he has grown quite a bit recently. Kalian holds his wine glass with an elegant, steady hand and replies with a calm smile that he has not grown much yet, but will certainly grow far more in the future. The bold response shocks everyone at the table. To break the tension, the queen turns to her son, whispering an inquiry about why his personal horse is no longer obeying his commands. Realizing the news of his untamed horse has spread, Plant slams his fork onto the table in deep embarrassment, shouting that it was a useless beast anyway before storming out of the room. 3 weeks pass rapidly, and the grand date of the king's birthday celebration finally arrives. The palace is bustling with lavish preparations. While being fitted for his formal attire, Kalian suffers a sudden massive nosebleed, causing him to lose substantial weight rapidly. To hide his deteriorating condition from the suspicious staff, his loyal servant Yen quickly concocts a ridiculous lie, telling the tailors that the prince simply has a private habit of aggressively picking his nose. The tailors accept the excuse, and Yen winks at Kalian. Though embarrassed by the absurd story, Kalian is relieved that his secret magical condition remains safe. Before the grand party begins, the princes are informed that they must meet the king individually in his private quarters. Kalian enters to find King Rain Cyries completely engrossed in a newspaper, utterly ignoring his son's respectful bow. Kalian realizes the king views spending any time with his children as an absolute waste of energy. Suddenly, Queen Cyries arrives late, offering a sarcastic apology that the king accepts without issue, proving her immense political dominance over the throne. Kalian smiles coldly to himself, fully aware that someone within this room is actively plotting his imminent assassination. When the grand banquet hall doors finally open, Kalian makes his official entrance. The crowd gasps in absolute shock. The rumors are entirely true. The third prince has completely transformed, with his long bangs cut away, his striking black hair and brilliant red eyes, reminiscent of the legendary hero Dragon Sasanian, are on full display. He wears a vibrant red brooch that perfectly accentuates his eyes, delivering a bold public statement that he will no longer hide in fear. Scanning the elite crowd, Kalian spots his target, Duke Slamen Han Siegfried, the leader of the only ducal family in Cyries and one of the 5 master swordsmen of the continent. The Siegfried family has maintained absolute loyalty to the crown for over 500 years. To test the master's legendary sharp instincts, Kalian subtly releases a minuscule trace of his internal magic into the air. Duke Slamen detects the energy instantly, turning his sharp gaze directly toward the young prince. Satisfied with the confirmation of the Duke's legendary skill, Kalian quickly cuts off the energy and walks away, acting as if nothing happened. As the king delivers a formal toast to the court, Kalian and Yen quietly slip out of a palace window using a hidden rope. They rush to the garden where the tamed horse Raven is waiting for them. They ride swiftly toward the kingdom's outer gates. Upon arrival, they witness a heated commotion. The royal guards are aggressively denying entry to an old traveler dressed in a heavy hood because he lacks an official written invitation. The traveler pulls back his hood to reveal himself as the legendary Grand Mage, Elon Manil. Elon smiles beneath his hood, remarking with deep sarcasm that it is a profound pity that a grand kingdom like Cyries chooses to differentiate the absolute status of its guests based entirely on their outward clothing. Kalian, observing from the shadows, realizes that Elon is intentionally using the guards' rude behavior as a convenient excuse to leave a kingdom he thoroughly despises. Turning his horse around, Elon begins to ride away into the night. Realizing this is his only chance for survival, Kalian orders Yen to do whatever it takes to delay the guards, while he pursues the departing mage. Spurring Raven forward, Kalian charges the gate. The panicked guards shout for him to halt, but Kalian exhibits masterful horsemanship, forcing Raven to leap cleanly over the barricade of soldiers and gallop into the wilderness. Left behind at the gate, Yen realizes he must fulfill the prince's orders. In a bold, stunning act of defiance, he unties his hair, letting it blow wildly in the wind, and commands the guards to halt by claiming that Duke Siegfried personally granted the prince permission to leave. When the guards demand to know how a mere servant dares use the duke's sacred name, Yen proudly reveals his true identity. Dimirea Siegfried, the eldest son of Duke Siegfried, who had been posing as a common servant to protect the prince. Later that evening, Duke Slamin laughs heartily at his embarrassed son, highly amused that Dimirea went to such extreme lengths to protect the young third prince. The Duke notes that by claiming the Siegfried family supported Kalian's sudden departure, the king will be forced to treat the situation with extreme caution, effectively burying the incident to avoid a political conflict with their powerful ducal house. Meanwhile, Kalian successfully catches up to Elon Manil near a moonlit fountain. Sensing his approach, Elon asks why the third prince of Cyries is aggressively pursuing an old man. Kalian notes with awe that upon reaching the seventh circle, a mage's aging process completely reverses, confirming Elon's youthful appearance. Kalian politely apologizes for the guard's poor behavior at the gate. Elon inspects the young prince closely, noting with astonishment that the boy does not possess the naive gaze of a typical 14-year-old child. Suddenly, Elon reaches out and grabs Kalian's hand, forcefully injecting his own immense mana directly into the boy's body to investigate his core. The foreign energy violently clashes with Kalian's fractured internal paths, causing an agonizing explosion of mana that forcefully drives both horses apart. Clutching his chest in extreme pain, Kalian gasps as Elon delivers a profound realization. The Grand Mage states that while Kalian's internal pathways are severely blocked, the true underlying issue preventing him from safely using magic lies somewhere else entirely. Elon looks intently at the clenching fist of the young prince, leaving Kalian in deep shock as he realizes his journey to uncovering the dark secrets of his new body has only just begun.